Recently, I made a video that seems to have ruffled a few feathers. Let's talk about it. So first things first, I will link the video down below that I'm talking about. This is just a video. I didn't think it was going to be controversial, to be totally honest, but like it was just me talking about all these budget beginner interfaces that I have had a chance to put my hands on over the course of the 20 plus years that I've been an audio engineer and mixing mastering engineer. And I was sharing my opinions on them and just kind of putting them in a rank list, right? Like fun YouTube kind of stuff. But man, like people got kind of upset at a few things. Here's the thing. Number one, audio is just opinions. That's it. If you have a different opinion, I don't care. Actually, correction. I'm over the moon if you have a different opinion than me, because that means that you and I will make different sounding music. And I think that music right now needs more of a human signature than ever before. So unique music needs to come out. I think that's great, right? So that's one. Number two, a lot of people were saying like, this isn't scientific. You're giving us no A/B comparisons, no audio samples. Like, how are we supposed to know? Here's the thing. I think that those scientific reviews, they have their place in time, but they really shouldn't be taken as seriously as they are by a lot of you. So here's what I mean. What you're listening to with a lot of A/B comparisons is the sound of that person in that room, in that microphone, in that interface at that time. You are not hearing yourself. You are not in your room. You're not listening to your voice or your guitar or whatever it is. You are listening to somebody else. And that's so important. Here's a story to underline exactly what I'm talking about. So the very first recording studio that I interned at, they got a call and this singer wanted to come and track some vocals at the studio, specifically because the studio had a U87 and a Neve 1073. There are some microphones and preamps that are standards in this industry, and some people will get jobs based on owning or being able to get access to that equipment. It's true. The U87 is one of those. Now, the newest version of the U87, I have a lot of opinions on that. That's for another video for another time. But the newest version of the U87 is a $3,500 microphone. It's expensive. The 1073 preamp, if you go and get one of the new ones, I think they're around $1,500 to $1,800, somewhere in there. This is not cheap equipment, right? So this singer comes in because of this equipment. And so she comes in and the studio owner is like, hey, so, I've got the U87 and it's hooked up to the 1073. It's ready to go. But if you're okay with it, I'd like to set up a few other microphones and just see what works best for your voice. Because he did not love the U87 like that. He was of that opinion. And so the singer comes in and she sings into the U87, and sure enough, it sounded really sibilant and harsh and top heavy and sizzly to the point of where it's ear fatiguing. Modern vocals, they have a lot of air in top end, right? But to a certain extent, it can actually work against you in some circumstances. So he was like, hey, so if we choose this microphone, I can already tell I'm going to have to pretty seriously work on some de-essing, and I'm going to probably have to notch out some EQ frequencies and do some other things with compression and such to get this thing to sit right. And one of the lessons that I learned early on is, when a lot of people are modern music is over compressed, I think what they really mean, and I said this in the last video too, is that it's over processed. And so he said, hey, if we use this mic, we're going to have to process it a lot to get it to sound right. And that can actually suck some of the life out of the recording. And she was like, oh, okay. And so we set up a few other mics. It was the Shure KSM 44. There was a C12 copy that he had. It's a tube microphone. And then there was this one other mic, and this is the one that won, which was a Sanken microphone, and that's spelled S-A-N-K-E-N. Most people don't talk about these microphones, but they should. They're great mics. I don't remember the exact model that we had. This was 20 years ago, but So she stings into that microphone, and everybody in the control room immediately was like, that's the one. It just, yep, we get it. We understand. This will work. This will sit right into the mix where it needs to. We won't even need to touch the top end. It's perfect, right? And there's this magic and beauty that happens when you match the right microphone with the right singer with the right preamp, and it's recorded well and you capture the performance. Oh man, it's just a thing of beauty, right? So like she is like, oh my God, that mic was fantastic. And come to find out that microphone she could pick up used on eBay for like $400. And it beat out the microphone that was $3,500 because it was what worked best for her voice. That is one of the reasons why it's like, yeah, but for somebody else, maybe the $3,500 U87 may have been the best one, right? But you don't know unless you're listening to it with like the lens that you have, right? So like you've got to realize like what you're looking for. Are you looking for a bright mic or dark mic, or what works for you? And you don't really figure that out until you try a whole bunch of stuff. And that's kind of like where I come in. So I was like, yeah, I've tried the SSL2 Plus, and honestly, the preamps are either too dark or they're just way too sizzly and bright on the top end once you click that 4K switch. But if you're a podcaster and you use the SM7B, that could be like the best option for you, because typically that preamp and that setting with that mic actually works really well for just podcasting kind of stuff. So if that's what you're doing, I could recommend that all day. I mean, that's my opinion, right? Do you have a different one? Guess what? It's just as valid, and I'm over the moon. Please continue to share with me where you disagree. But okay, more on like the scientific thing. People are like, oh, this is not scientific at all. You're just, sharing opinions and you're not giving us any context or audio samples. Sorry, I'll work on doing more of that, but that wasn't what that video was about. And I don't really want to focus all of my time on that either, because again, it's just not as valuable, because it doesn't really give you an idea of what it's going to sound like for you or your voice. This is me sharing my experience and opinions. That's all it is. So I'm never going to check with you before I make content. I'm just going to post what I want to post, and I am going to share my opinions. And if you have a different one, then I welcome it down below. I'm grown up enough to actually have that conversation. This is the last thing I'll say. So a lot of people are like, oh, you know what, the noise test of the preamp is important and all that kind of thing. There was one comment talking about like the dynamic range. That was different. But this was like a comment that was like, well, we need to know what the noise sounds like on the preamp. And I'm like, no, you don't. That doesn't matter. Like the amount of noise or how much dB of gain it has, sure, that could be a factor. Like, again, it depends on what you want. Do you have a high output, like condenser mic like I've got here? Guess what? Like a super high output preamp is not going to be that important for you. And so like when I listen to those scientific tests of where they crank up the preamp just so they can hear the silence, and they put on their headphones and they listen to the silence of this preamp and the white noise sound that it makes, I'm like, that reminds me when I like look at like photography reviews, because I also do like photography and stuff, and they'll talk about lenses and they'll take a picture of a brick f***ing wall. And I'm like, that does no one any good. But I guess they're looking at corner sharpness, which I, again, have never really cared about. That doesn't really suit my style. But for people who are, taking pictures of brick walls, I guess that matters. That's kind of how I feel about it. For anyone who's really recording your preamps at high gain volumes all the time, sure, I guess if you want to look at the quality of the noise of mic preamps, and if that's how you want to spend your time on the internet, bully for you. For me, I could not care less. And like, here's another example. Actually, I'll be right back. Okay. So I've got this, right? And a lot of people have one of these. This is Focus. There it goes. Cloud Lifter. You know what these are. A lot of people know what these are. If you don't, this is something that you put in line in between a low output microphone and your interface or your preamp of choice. What this does is it just gives you a boost of gain. That's it. So for A microphone that's really gain hungry, that requires you to crank it up a little bit, like a ribbon microphone, or the SM7B is a very popular microphone to be paired up with this thing. That's what this does, right? And so a lot of people are like, oh, if you have an SM7B, you got to pick up one of these. And I'm like, it depends. It does. It really depends. Hear me out. There are times when, like, if I'm recording a band, and again, this isn't a podcast. If you're doing a podcast, you probably want this. But if you're recording a band and you're recording an SM7B, and it's like, well, it depends. What preamp are you using? Like, if you are using like a transformer balanced preamp that's got like a metric ton of gain to it, like I really encourage you at some point in time. There is this magical thing that happens with an SM7B when it goes into a 1073 preamp, because that's got like, I forget, like 80 or 85 dB of gain, maybe 75. I'll have to look it up. But like when you crank up that preamp, the iron that's in those transformers, it just starts to saturate the signal and get it to crackle and breathe, and all these harmonic frequencies just open up. And you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds really good. And so that only happens when you crank those things, right? And so if you had a cloud lifter, you wouldn't be able to crank that preamp. And so the trade-off is when you do crank it, yeah, it's going to introduce a little bit more noise, but oh my God, but what do you gain? You get all that harmonic saturation and all that just goopy goodness that comes. It's not so much goopy. It's actually kind of like, it's got a hard edge to it, I would say. Anywho, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. It just, what are you trying to do? Like, does gear matter? Sometimes not at all. Other times, absolutely. It just depends, like, on your use case. And I can't speak to your use case, but I can at least share my opinions of what I've come to know and learn from these things over my experience. And hopefully you get some value out of that. So, listen, if you want more, like, no BS, no nonsense type of approach to the audio conversation, please give me a follow. I'm going to start posting a lot more on this channel. I have reached out to a few companies. I will be doing some reviews. Again, most of what I do these days is mixing and mastering, and I've got some speakers coming, and I'm excited to show you guys. So I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe, hit buttons.